Welcome to Please Me, the award-winning #1 sexuality podcast with Big Clit Energy. We explore sexuality, intimacy, pleasure, kink, and longevity to help you live a longer, healthier, more intimate life at any age. I'm Eve Hall, your host, on a journey from trauma to sexual liberation. Here we challenge shame, celebrate pleasure, and have the honest conversations about sexuality we were never taught to have. Let's reclaim pleasure and sexual confidence, one conversation at a time. Today I'm doing something a little different. As we transition between seasons of Please Me, I'm sharing a previously recorded guest appearance on Ask a Sex Therapist with Heather Shannon, titled Big Clit Energy with Eve Hall, Unlock Your Sexual Confidence. We dive into sexual confidence, intimacy, pleasure, and breaking through shame around sexuality. I'm happy to share that I've been nominated for a 2026 ASN Award for Best Educator. This year it's a one-time vote, so I would truly appreciate your support. The link is in the show notes, and I thank you for your vote. If you're ready to take your pleasure and sexual health seriously, explore the Sexual Longevity Protocol, a self-paced course designed to support you long-term. And if you want to start gently, download the 30-day self-pleasure and body reconnection practices, a free daily guide to help you reconnect with your body and build pleasure one day at a time. Before we dive in, if you enjoy Please Me, please follow the podcast and leave a 5-star review. It helps more people discover the show. For ad-free episodes, early access, and exclusive content, join me on Patreon or subscribe to my premium Substack. You can find all the links in the show notes. Thanks for your support. Please Me is for mature audiences, so sit back, relax, and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me. Ladies, let's get personal for a minute. What does your vaginal health routine look like? Because as we mature, our intimate self-care needs an upgrade. If hormone shifts have you feeling dry, less sensitive, or just not quite like yourself, I've got a simple 3-step protocol I'm loving. Every morning I use my lady pump to increase blood flow and wake up the lady bits. And yes, it comes with 3 attachments for all the sensations. Then I apply Shamelessly Aroused by Shameless Care, formulated with sildenafil, the active ingredient used in Viagra, to support stronger arousal, better lubrication, and more responsive orgasms. Pair that with a daily self-love ritual, and you've got a powerful daytime combo. At night, I use Parlor Games estrogen and progesterone creams to support healthy hormone levels and resilient vaginal tissue. Fewer oops moments when I sneeze, and way more confidence when intimacy calls. Dryness, decreased sensitivity, frequent UTIs, incontinence, low blood flow? These 3 upgrades can be a total game changer, because intimate health isn't indulgent. It's essential. And trust me, you'll feel the difference.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another special guest episode of Ask the Sex Therapist. Today, I have Eve Hall with me. Eve is a licensed physical therapist who treats conditions regarding sexual health. She is also a certified health coach who is on a mission to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health. Eve is the host of a podcast called Please Me, where she covers all sorts of topics related to sexuality, such as safe sex, kink and fetish, orgasms, big clit energy, relationship options, and so much more. She's the creator of the growing orgasm revolution, where she aims to bring awareness to the orgasm gap and close women's orgasm gap one person at a time with education, awareness, and of course, communication. So thank you, Eve, for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk to you.
I know. I'm excited to talk to you too. I love that you kind of have that combination of the physical therapy background, but also the health coaching when it comes to sex. That's a unique combo. So very cool.
Yes, I found that it sort of just happened.
Okay.
I was a health coach, and I, through seeing lots of patients with these sexual health conditions, it just naturally sort of, people start telling you about, they don't just talk about the physical, they talk about the emotional, they talk about the psychological
For sure.
aspects of the condition on their marriage or their relationships or themselves. And so it just sort of naturally formed, and I decided to start doing intimacy coaching too, because it was already happening. So
yeah, that's so true. It's kind of like, so many people wind up being like accidental coaches or therapists, like your personal trainer, your hairdresser.
Yeah, and if you're a good listener,
therapist.
I mean, some people are just naturally like able to step into that role because they're good listeners. And I feel like that's something that I've always been pretty proud of in terms of like having a good bedside manner and like my clients really, relating to me in lots of different ways. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I do want to hear more about this big clit energy. Tell us about that. Because we hear so much about like big dick energy, right?
Yes.
And just the fact that you're kind of, coining this term or discussing big clit energy, I feel like, yeah, why are we talking about that? so tell, what is big clit energy and why did you feel like it was important to talk about?
Thanks for asking about it.
Yeah.
With my podcast, I covered topics like big dick energy, right? And I was like, well, what is the female equivalent of that?
Mm-hmm.
And I did some searching and I read some articles and they said, a woman can have big dick energy too. We consider like Beyonce has big dick energy and like Rihanna has big dick energy. And I'm like, okay, I agree that they have sensual confidence and possibly sexual confidence and
Sure.
they step into their feminine and they use that power.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to have big dick energy. I don't have a dick and I don't want to be associated with having a dick. I'm a woman and I want it to be a my thing, right? So yes, we can still have that sort of energy, right? And so the male has the penis and the female equivalent of the penis is actually the clitoris. And so I chose to call it big clit energy.
Yeah.
And I did trademark it. So it is something that I coined, I trademarked, and I love to talk about sexual confidence, stepping into that sexual confidence, stepping into that sexual liberation. Everybody needs to like sort of get on that path.
Right.
And so building that confidence is a process, but it's a beautiful process. And that confidence translates to all areas of our lives. It translates to the boardroom and to being in front of an audience and to all of the things that you do. Having confidence in your sexuality is going to translate to everything.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And I think it can be challenging because of some of the forces at work in our society.
Of course, which is what we're fighting against, right?
Right. So how do you work with people to kind of maybe take them from feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't feel great in my body, I'm so busy I can't even think about sex, to feeling like they're really embodying the big clit energy?
Yeah. So, we talk about lots of things that you just mentioned. What around sex makes you feel shame? What around sex makes you feel avoidant? And we try to like sort of break those things down because bottom line is we're getting those messages from every aspect of our lives, whether it be our religious upbringing or the society or the family or your friends, even your friends,
Mm-hmm.
And so, throwing all of that baggage, once you recognize it, you can really throw that baggage out the window and sort of create a clean slate and think about how you want your sex life to be. What is it that you want to feel? How is it that you want to step into that power?
Yeah.
And
That's
step
always
into that.
so good to start there. Like, what do you actually want?
Right. Right.
I love that.
And for some people, it's something very specific that they've never talked about before, like a kink or a fetish or, something that they're afraid to say. And communication can be such a huge barrier in relationships. So I talk a lot about communication and how we can be better communicators. And I love to model, the communication. And so I often will do like a role play on my show at the end with my guests, just to sort of model those conversations because they can be uncomfortable. They can be, awkward. And so modeling that conversation and showing people how these conversations can be had is, I think, really helpful.
I agree. Because when I think of somebody who has big clit energy, like she knows what she wants and like she knows how to express it and she's kind of owning her desires, But you're right. Like the path from point A to point B of having the big clit energy is not always an easy one.
Yes, it's a process. It's like, any other thing that you want to get better at, it takes practice and communication takes practice. And having big clit energy and like empowering yourself to really love your body, love your, all of these things it's a process. We grow up thinking we're supposed to look like XYZ and getting out of that mindset is a process. It takes time. It takes thought. So absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful process. It's a beautiful journey. And so I love to encourage people to sort of, jump on that path, that, yellow brick road, pink big
Right.
road, pink brick
Yeah.
road, or whatever we should recoin that, and get on that path to, starting to move in that direction, because
Right.
our sexuality is really, our adult, I like to say it's our adult playground. It's where adults
Love that.
play.
Yep.
And so if we aren't, enjoying that adult playground, we're really missing out on a lot of joy in life.
I think so too. And I think before even becoming a sex therapist, when I was just, generalist, kind of doing holistic or holistic therapy in general,
Uh-huh.
it really hit me like, wow, everyone's kind of struggling with the same things. And so much of it is hustle culture and just kind of go, do, be more productive, be better, do more, and not so much of like rest, enjoy, be sensual, luxuriate in your sexuality, like embrace pleasure. It's like, where were those messages? They're really nowhere.
They're right here.
Now,
And they're right. And they're right on my show, and they're right on, the shows that are similar to ours, because
right.
we need that. We need that. And I think that people are responding, and lots of people are listening.
100%. And I mean, I think, as you were describing the yellow brick road, I'm like, if you're listening to this, you're already on the road.
Right.
Just keep going.
Exactly.
And sometimes it is kind of questioning yourself. But I think what I'm curious about is, what was your path to kind of getting into this work? It sounds like you probably started out with physical therapy and then it evolved, but I'm also curious, like, do you kind of have a personal connection to this work? Have you had your own yellow brick road? And like, what does that look like for you?
Yes, I have had my yellow brick road. Okay. I like to say that I've gone from trauma to sexual liberation. Okay. I have a history of sexual abuse as a child. Mm-hmm. 5 people in my life sexually abused me. Okay. And so I feel like, my path started there at 5, and so the repression and the shame around sexuality was there for a very long time. In my 20s, I did a lot of healing around that, around my sexual abuse. I was part of a group called SIA, which I'm sure is still out there. I think it stands for Survivors of Incest Anonymous.
Okay.
And it's like an AA, like a 12-step program, but it's geared towards, healing from sexual trauma. And that was really helpful. I also did lots of therapy for many years. And so in that experience, I was able to get to the point where I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children, which was something that I didn't want for a long, long time. Okay. Because of the sexual trauma and the feeling of, inadequacy as a mother. I was afraid that I was going to not be a good mother, and so that was like one layer of healing. But I realized that like there are many layers of healing. So I did get married. I did end up in a sexless relationship for many, many years, which, for me was very difficult because I'm a very sexual person. And then I ended up getting divorced. And when I got divorced, I moved to Florida and with my daughters, and became a single mom, and was really ready at that point to just like jump in head first and be like, okay, I want to create a life for myself that is full of pleasure, because I had been so devoid of it for so long. And so I really just, jumped on my own path and started having different experiences, being really open-minded about sex and trying things out, trying things that I'd never tried before, and really like figuring out what I really love. Yeah. And through that, I realized that I really love talking about sex, and I really, and so I changed my career path. After COVID, we all sort of had this like epiphany of like, hey, we can do what the hell we want. We don't have to work for somebody else, right? Yes. So I changed my career path, and I started focusing on the pelvic floor, and sexual health conditions, and I haven't looked back. I'm loving every minute of it. And I have to say that, with my clients, oftentimes they'll come to me and they'll say, I'm here, and you probably have the same exact thing. happen where they're saying, I'm here to talk to you about my sexual health or whatever it may be regarding sexuality. However, my wife doesn't know I'm here. Or I didn't tell my husband I was coming for treatment of my incontinence because I'm too embarrassed or whatever.
Yeah.
And I realized that there was such a huge breakdown in communication in relationships, not just short-term relationships, but long-term relationships, right? And so conversations need to be had. That's the only way that we can move forward. And so I decided to start the podcast because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things I love about podcasting, and it's so funny because like some of my long-term friends listen to this podcast and they'll be like, oh, I feel like we've been keeping in touch. And I'm like, no, I have not actually talked to you. But it allows us to feel connected. And I think it really helps normalize the conversation around sex, and just that, like just having this foundation of it's okay to talk about it, and it's not weird, and it's just part of who you are, and we don't have to feel different talking about like our fingernails versus our clitoris. It's just they're both parts of your body, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you do get to the point where you feel really like open about that, but it's a process. And I can just remember when I was in my 20s and in one of my earliest relationships where the person that I was in a relationship with was really like encouraging me to like, get therapy and all of this stuff, which was wonderful. Right. Yeah. But I just remember having such difficulty communicating with him and not expressing my emotions with him, not expressing my needs with him. And I remember that it was so difficult that I would have to write things on a piece of paper because I couldn't actually say the words. Yep. And to go from that to where I'm at now, like it just shows how much progress somebody can make if they really want to.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that example. It can be hard to talk about things, whether it's just really emotionally vulnerable or it feels vulnerable because it's sex and it's kind of even taught it's a taboo topic, or it just feels so personal and you've never talked to someone about it before. I had a client share that her boyfriend had never talked to anyone about sex before her. She's the first person that he kind of feels even comfortable enough to try to go there, which is cool, right? But yeah, we all kind of need to start somewhere. And so maybe we start with the podcast and just like, okay, we're just going to let it be one directional, but then pushing yourself to make it two directional, where can you open up? And also I appreciate you sharing because I think it's important to normalize the vulnerability and the discomfort. And, I've certainly been there too, where something comes up related to an intimate relationship or sex. And it's like, oh my God, I feel so vulnerable and I feel kind of shameful. What if I look like a total fool? And what if this person rejects me? And what if, like those fears are all so human and so normal. But sometimes we just have to push through them and say the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like starting with small things, right? Something that you think is going to be easily accepted from the other person. Like, we've never talked about what turns us on. I would love to know like the top 3 things that turn you on. I want to know, like, I should know that about you. We've never had that conversation, and why not start there? Like, that's something that I think people should know about their partners. And I think that the BDSM community does that best, right? And, I think the BDSM community does this best, and also I will say the LGBTQ community as well, because, parts fit differently, right, in the LGBTQ community. So there has to be a conversation about what do you like? Do you want to be a top? Do you want to be a bottom? Are you a switch? Those sorts of things. And then in the BDSM community, they're talking about, what their turn-ons are, what their hard limits are, what they're into, what they're not into. And we should be having these conversations with our partners, because why are we assuming that our partner is going to know exactly what is going to turn us on? That's a ridiculous thought, right?
It's a very ridiculous thought that most people have.
Exactly. They talk about, what their turn-ons are, what they like, what they don't like. And, we should be having these conversations early on in relationships. We shouldn't be waiting until, years down the road, because you could be partnered with somebody that is not compatible with you sensually, and here you are years later and you're trying to fix things, whereas you could have started off on the right foot at the beginning, or gotten rid of somebody that wasn't gonna want to pleasure you. I mean,
I
we
think
shouldn't be in a relationship.
there's a lot to learn from the LGBTQ and the BDSM, and I would add the non-monogamous ENM communities, because anytime you're deviating from kind of the traditional relationship escalator, vanilla sex formula or social script, you have to be more conscious. Right.
Yes.
And so some of these people have not had the option to kind of just like have a default programming, because that kind of hasn't been written. But I think what everyone can take from this, so even if you're like, hey, I'm cis, hetero, white, vanilla, whatever, this absolutely still applies to you, right? And it's an opportunity and an invitation to kind of be more conscious about those conversations and to do some more exploring, maybe, I liked what you said before about like exploring your fantasies, exploring your turn on.
Absolutely. I mean, a fantasy is a fantasy, but it can be a reality if you want to explore it, and it can stay in fantasy land too,
100%.
but maybe knowing about that fantasy will be a big turn on for your partner, so why not explore that? I mean, our bodies are meant for pleasure, head to toe, right? We have all of these sensory, touch sense receptors on our body, not just our genitals are sensitive. Our whole bodies are sensitive. I like to think of the whole body as an erogenous zone. So why not explore that with your partner? And it doesn't always have to be penetrative sex. It can be just an exploration of sensual touch.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit more about like sexual exploration, because I'm sure there's some people listening that they're like, yeah, I probably am in a little bit of a sex rut. Yeah, we do the same 2 positions in the bed all the time, and like it's fine. And then my partner kind of knows my buttons to press, and maybe I even usually orgasm, but it's like it's a little bit like meh. So, what are some of your thoughts about like where somebody can start exploring a little bit more, and how do they kind of start opening their minds?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that, sometimes people get into a rut, right? And they do the same positions. And, I'm not going to lie, like I have my favorite position that I like to orgasm from.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting rid of that position. I love that position. It's my fave, you know what I mean? Yeah. But how can we sort of like expand on that? And I think that, thinking about sex is not just penetrative sex and what you see in the movies, right? You're always seeing people like having penetrative sex. Sex is so much more than that. It's foreplay. And I want to bring the idea of foreplay being part of the sexual act.
Yes.
Because it's necessary and women need it. And women need 20 to 25 minutes of warm up before we're even prepared or ready for penetrative sex. And so it's so important to sort of explore your entire body. So I like to talk about, exploring head to toe and maybe doing some touching that's non-sexual, and just exploring the parts of your partner's body that are sensitive to touch that feel like sensual touch, right? Because sensual touch doesn't necessarily just come from the genitals and your nipples, right? You can have sensual touch from the back of your neck or your lower back or your inner thigh or even your feet, So learning what those areas are that you like to be touched is important, and knowing what those things are so that you can translate them to the bedroom. Because, and if you don't explore, you're never going to know. So, trying to build curiosity around our sensual lives. So I really love to think about the whole body as being an erogenous zone, not just the erogenous zones that you think about your genitalia, right? But your whole entire body being an erogenous zone, because when your body is perceiving sensation that's sensual, it's going to light up that part of your brain, the sensual part of your brain, the clitoral area, right? And so no matter where on your body you're touching, if it's perceived as sensual touch, that is going to be triggered in your brain. So a lot of times people talk about different types of orgasms, right? Nipple orgasms and whatever. There's like a zillion kinds of like
quote unquote orgasms that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is it's sensual touch that's being perceived by your body as sensual touch. And so it's lighting up that clitoral area.
Yeah. So isn't that so interesting how like just, I don't know, our nervous system works and how touches of different parts of the body can stimulate other parts, you know?
Absolutely.
I think that's so cool.
We're so interconnected, you know, and it is really fascinating. But, you know, exploring that, trying to really hone those skills, trying to figure out what those areas are on your partner and letting your partner know what those areas are on you. That is really how we're going to get those pleasure needs met and that orgasm gap closed, because the orgasm gap does exist.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we have a whole episode on that we'll link to in the show notes as well. But the basic gist is that, you know, male-bodied people are having more orgasms more consistently than female people. And also when it's two females, they're having more than when it's a male and a female partner, which is interesting. So there's some interesting data there to explore. And so I'm glad you're working on that, Eve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, statistics really bring home what we're trying to talk about. And, you know, you mentioned that you had another episode about it, and I think it was with Dr. Lori Mins, correct?
Yeah.
Well, her book is amazing. I love her book so much. It's
amazing. Yeah.
And in her book, she talks about the statistic of only 3 to 5% of women can orgasm from penetration alone. And, you know, there's other studies that have been done that talk about higher numbers than that, but they don't weed out the difference between penetrative sex and then penetrative sex plus stimulation of the clitoris, right? So of course, if you have clitoral stimulation and penetrative sex together, that's going to increase your ability to orgasm because you're doing the external stimulation too. But if you look just at penetrative sex by itself, only 3 to 5% of women can orgasm from penetration alone. That is crazy. And if we're only focused on penetration, we are missing out so much. And so, you know, I think that women should feel empowered to want to close that orgasm gap for themselves. And I know that in my relationships in the past, there has been an orgasm gap that existed. And no, in my relationship now, I'm not constantly just focused on, you know, the end result, right?
Right.
And you want to enjoy like the entire process. But if you think in your mind, I'm not going to orgasm, you will never orgasm. So you have to have that internal confidence to know, and also to know what works for you.
Yes. And I think that goes to the sensual exploration you're describing, you know, so if you're not 100% sure what works for you, it's going to be hard to communicate that with a partner. So just doing the sensual exploration can help. And then earlier you mentioned kind of the kink exploration and fantasies. And I think that's another area that, you know, really is sort of like ripe for closing the orgasm gap. You know, the more you understand the mental turn-ons, which can turn into physical ones too.
Exactly.
The better, right?
Exactly. And the more you communicate those things with your partner, the better you're going to be able to close that gap. And words have so much power. And I love dirty talk, and I love talking about dirty talk. And, you know, if you have a kink, say, for instance, I like to be spanked, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of it, you know, and I'm like really close. And I know that if my partner introduces that at the moment that I'm at, it's going to help me to get there, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it going to be great if you have the confidence to be like, spank me, you know?
Yes.
And say what you need. We need to be able to say what we need and, you know, help our partners to help us. And I think that for the most part, our partners do want to help us receive pleasure, help us explore pleasure.
And if they don't, please kick that one to the curb.
Bingo on that. But what if it's your husband of like 20 years or something? You know what I mean?
Well,
so
hire a coach or a sex therapist.
Exactly. That's where we come in, where our specialty comes in, where we are needed to kind of like change those patterns.
Right. Right. Because sometimes, I think a lot of the culture can be sex is about the man, sex is about penetration, sex is over when the man comes. And it's like,
No.
it puts a lot of pressure on men to perform.
True.
And it also really reduces sex when it is so much more expansive. So I think a lot of this is about expanding your definition of sex, expanding your definition of pleasure, kind of having a lived, embodied experience of what brings you pleasure. And it might not be what you're expecting, which I think is kind of cool.
I do too. And I'm always learning new things that turn me on, and it's a continual learning process. And, our bodies change as we age. They are going to, the position that you used to do and was your favorite back in the day may not be what it's going to be in 30 years, because you're not going to possibly have the strength, or maybe your muscles will be different down in the vaginal area or whatever, you know what I mean? There's like your body changes, we have hormonal shifts, etc. So we should be thinking about how we can be transitioning and enjoying sex throughout our whole lives.
I love that. Thank you for making that point, because I do think that we latch on almost to like how sex was in like our 20s or something, and we think that's how it's supposed to be. But yes, it's true everything you just said about our bodies changing, and that doesn't mean sex gets worse. It can actually get better.
It does get better. I mean,
right?
So much better, because you know yourself more. You're throwing away all those hangups that you used to have about, can you see the dimple on my ass, like the cellulite or whatever, you're throwing away all those hangups. As you get older, you just naturally do that. I think a lot of women do, but a lot of people need a lot of help with getting rid of that. All of that crap that we like get programmed into believing.
So much crap in there.
Yeah. But I think, as you get older, you sort of are growing as a human being, emotionally and hopefully spiritually and all of those things. Yes. And so, the sex does definitely get better as you get older if you are focused on making it better. Yeah, it could totally get worse and disappear like it did in my first, in my marriage. It could,
That's a good point. Yeah. It's kind of like if you nurture it, it's like if you think of it, it's like, this is our baby, and are we going to either take care of the baby or are we going to ignore the baby?
Exactly. So nurturing it is key.
Yeah, I think so too. But the nurturing can be fun. A lot of people are like, sex feels like work. And then usually that means there needs to be some kind of mindset shift more towards, what do I want and what would I enjoy? And if I were to throw everything out the window of what I'm supposed to do or should do, where am I actually at with pleasure? But yeah, we need to kind of ask ourselves those questions.
Yeah. And why does it feel like a chore to you? Why does it feel like work? Why? It should feel like joy. It should feel, the ultimate thing is to, feel pleasure, right? And we were luckily, built to feel and express pleasure and love. And so I always say, everybody deserves love and everybody deserves pleasure. And if you're not giving yourself that, I feel like you're missing a big part of like being a human being.
Yeah, I think so too. And I do think we can get reduced to like, human doings and, all the tasks. So so let's not make sex one of the tasks.
Right.
But that can be easier said than done sometimes. So, okay. So one other question I have is, let's say we have a couple and they're like, sex life is fine, but we're kind of doing the same basics. And we kind of have figured out some erogenous zones, but we do want to explore different fantasies. Sometimes what I find is like people don't really know what they want until they try some things. So where do you recommend people start if they're like, I kind of want to try some things, but I don't even really know what I want to try yet?
Together, the couple can research things or research things on their own and then share it with their partner. And I have to say, I think porn is a great place to start, because yes, there is porn that's, male centered, and unfortunately most porn is, but there's a lot of female centered porn now too.
There is, which is nice.
Yeah. So I think, hey, I saw, this position and this was really interesting to me, or, there was this one, video that I saw where the woman was with two men, and that really interests me. That's pretty high level getting to that point.
We have some advanced listeners.
Yeah, but being able to express those things, express those fantasies, and so absolutely, that's one place to look. Then there's erotica. Erotica is a great
Yep.
a great way to sort of like turn yourself on if you are having a hard time getting into the right mindset. So erotica is a great place to look for ideas. And I think a lot of people have ideas already.
Yeah.
And they just can't verbalize them. They're like, I know I think I would like this, or I've liked this in the past with another partner, but my new partner doesn't do it and I don't know how to say it. So, building curiosity around the sexual, playground. And let's create a game around it. Let's see what we can introduce that we can both enjoy. And the idea is for both to enjoy, right? Not to do something that only one person is enjoying and the other person is doing just because the other person likes it, right? But, thinking about all of the kinks that people have. And, 45% of Americans consider themselves kinky. So it's not.
It's a large number.
I know. Yeah. It's not even that, abstract of a thought process. You know what I mean? No. Like a lot of people are thinking about kinks and the things that they like. And a lot of people are doing kinky things and not even realizing that they're doing kinky things. It's just
right.
Yeah. So
no, this is something I like. But and the word kinky and identifying as kinky, it's so like nebulous. It's like, where even is that line? I don't know. If you're listening, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. If you like it, share it with your partner. If you like it, share it with your partner. Yeah. And hopefully they'll be open to listening,
Oh yeah, and you're right. And that's a huge part of it is like, it's not a one-way street here. If your partner is sharing, be a safe space. If you're the one sharing, like tell your partner what you need when they're listening,
Yeah.
So that you feel
no
safe.
Judgment zone.
I love wearing a bra, said no one ever. If you're tired of discomfort and want a great bra alternative, I highly recommend Cakes. I gave up bras during COVID and searched everywhere for something better, and Cakes is the best solution I've found. They offer adhesive, non-adhesive, and push-up options that give a seamless look under your clothes without straps or discomfort. If you're tired of racing to your car to pull your bra off at the end of the day, it's time to get your Cakes. I haven't looked back, and I know you won't regret it. Check the show notes for the link. If you've ever wished sex could feel more connected, more intense, or honestly just more fun, you need to check out Shameless Care. They're a telemedicine company built entirely around sexual health, real doctors, real prescriptions, and products that actually work. Like Shameless Chemistry, their oxytocin plus tadalafil blend that deepens connection and boosts arousal. Or Shamelessly Aroused, a topical cream with the active ingredient found in men's ED medication, increasing blood flow exactly where it counts. Every order includes a short video introduction from your doctor, transparent pricing, and no subscriptions ever. Just real, sex-positive healthcare that delivers results. Because you're a Please Me listener, you can use coupon code PLEASEME for $15 off your order of any product on the Shameless Care website. Use the code PLEASEME, that's PLEASEME, at checkout to claim your $15 off. Again, that's shamelesscare.com, code PLEASEME. Because great sex shouldn't be complicated. It should be shameless. This episode is sponsored by Shameless Care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been very excited lately that kink is becoming more mainstream. Like in the last 10 days, probably, I've been interviewed by Women's Health magazine about hot wifing and cuckolding.
Okay.
And Well and Good about hog tying.
Okay.
Which is pretty fascinating. I'm like, wow, these are like very like mainstream outlets that are like going down that rabbit hole of some kinks. And it's exciting to me to just see like the more I think that we're seeing this in mainstream outlets, like, and then that show Dying for Sex, that's on Hulu.
Oh, so I haven't watched that one. I got to watch that.
That's where the hog tying interview came from, is because it was referenced. So there's like a palliative social worker in the show that mentioned that they're into hog tying. And then, the main character kind of goes down this rabbit hole of exploring some like power exchange. And I haven't finished watching the series, but it's pretty interesting. So I think the more we see it normalized, the more it kind of gives us permission to kind of be like, maybe it's okay.
Erotica is a really great tool that I think people can introduce personally or with their partner. And they can, say something about the erotic story that they're reading and be specific. I think being specific is really important because, you know, some of it may be a turn on to like read, but there's like one part that you're like, ooh, that would be something that I would be willing to try. So really teasing out those things, teasing out the things that you're really super interested in and want to try with your partner. And again, you know, starting with like the, you know, really basic conversations and building up to those kinks and fetishes that, you know, may be something that are, you know, outside of the box.
Yes.
But it's good to think about sex as being outside of the box, because if you're always thinking about sex as being in the box, right?
That's what I'm saying.
You're going to have a very vanilla, boring sex life. You want to think about this aspect of your life as being outside of the box, and how can you make it richer by enhancing it with different modalities. How about introducing toys?
Right.
You know, toys are such a great tool. And I feel like sometimes people are intimidated by them. They shouldn't be. It's like any other tool that you use. It's something that you are putting in your toolbox that can only enhance the experience. So I think toys are another really great way to explore. And your partner may surprise you with something that they have been wanting to try. For instance, a lot of men want to try pegging.
Yeah.
You know, or anal play, and they're afraid to say it, you know? And so, you know, talking about these things and you know, really exploring is really a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like the more you explore, even if it is just talking about different things you could do when it comes to sex, you might decide no, right? Like, we're not trying to make anyone be like inauthentically kinky or using toys if it's not something you're excited about, but like there's probably something that's just outside your comfort zone that would be appealing to you. So the idea is like, start expanding your comfort zone by having these conversations. You know?
Yes, absolutely. Get uncomfortable, because that is how we grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable. It happens when you're uncomfortable. So really getting out of that comfort zone and exploring with your partner and with yourself with yourself.
Yes.
You know, you can solo explore and you can find new creative things that you love that you want to introduce to your partner.
Yeah.
So exploring with yourself first and then introducing those things is another way that we can really kind of expand our sexual, you know, repertoire.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I will also add, I have a video on setting up a FetLife profile. So we'll link to that in the show notes, because just seeing what other people are into and what other people have on their kink list can just be like, oh, actually, I would like to try that. Oh, I'm maybe a little curious about that. Oh, I'm going to put that on my list. And I think, you know, then when you get bored, go back to your list, like have it in writing somewhere, either have it in your FetLife profile or have a little journal. We're kind of keeping track of turn-ons and fantasies and things that are exciting to you.
Yes, I think that's a really great place to look. FetLife, I'm not familiar with FetLife, but it's, you know, a fetish, you know, dating site.
Well, it's not a dating site. So it's actually like Facebook for kinky people is how I would describe it. You can meet people there, but don't expect to.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, that's interesting, because I always thought it was a dating site.
No.
And I do a lot of education for SDC.com, which is a dating site. And it's also a really great place for education around sexuality. And there's lots of groups there. There's kinky groups. There's all sorts of things there. So becoming part of one of these sites is also another way to really sort of expand your horizons and sort of like get ideas.
Yes. There's so many places where you can learn more. And it's just that like, we kind of limit ourselves, and so then we don't see the solutions, but they're out there. You know, if you need more, contact me or Eve, you know, we'll help you.
Right, exactly. And that's what we'd love to do.
It is. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Eve. If people are like, like Eve sounds like she's doing some cool stuff in the world, how do I connect with her? How do I work with her? Where would you like to send them?
So the best place is pleaseme.online, and that's my website. And if you go to the contacts page and you send me a message, that'll go directly to my email.
Cool.
And all of my socials are there. So if you want to follow me on any social media, all of my socials are on the contacts page. And on my website, there is a plethora of information, a lot of webinars that I've done in the past,
Cool.
my podcasts, and also I have a store of sexy toys. Sometimes I'll recommend for some of my patients that have, like, for instance, erectile dysfunction, I'll say get a penis pump. So there's things that I recommend for my patients on there as well, and just lots of fun things. So definitely check out my site.
I love that. And all your like coaching information and everything is there too.
Everything's there.
Great.
All of it's there.
Love it. Okay. We will link to that in the show notes as well. So everybody look out for that. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Eve, for being here. We appreciate it. And we'll catch everybody next week on another episode of Ask the Sex Therapist. Bye, everybody.
If you're looking to deepen your connection to your body, your pleasure, and your intimate life, you're not alone. I offer sexual health and intimacy coaching to support you with confidence, communication, pleasure, and sexual well-being. You can also explore my self-paced 3-module course, The Sexual Longevity Protocol, designed to help you build lifelong intimacy, pleasure, and sexual vitality. It's available now for $47. If you're ready to take the next step, you can book a free 15-minute discovery call. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for being here.
Are you looking for a sexy date? Look no further than SDC.com. SDC.com is the premier ethically non-monogamous website that is worldwide. It also hosts a wealth of information on sexuality and sexual health, and I host a free live webinar monthly on the site. You can use code 37340 for a free trial membership on me. And be sure to reach out on the site and say hello.
I want to personally invite you to join me on Patreon for ad-free listening, bonus episodes, and early releases. Already there is a lot of bonus content on there with many webinars that I've done in the past and a show that I've never released to the public before. My show is completely self-funded, and when you are able to support me in this way, I'm able to spread my message of body positivity, self-love, and women's empowerment, and empowerment in general around sexuality around the globe. And so with that being said, I appreciate everyone who has already joined Patreon. And if you've thought about joining, now's your nudge to do so.